So I've been farming for, I guess, 30-something years, 34 years. And we bought this farm in 2008 and then converted it to organic. At one time we were managing, four farms, principally through a community-supported agriculture type of program. And we had at our peak about 4,000 subscribers. Here in Chesterfield, there's an overabundance of horse manure, whereas in Pennington, which is where our other farms were, there was an overabundance of municipal leaves. So here we were focusing on composting what was free, which was the horse manure. We were using a traditional windrow system, and the material, it heats readily. It'll stay hot. In a windrow system, during kind of the dry period of August, the piles will dry down, and then that'll kind of quench out the composting. So then that kind of puts a check on the composting. It kind of slows down as the piles dry, but then they will, during the fall and winter, they pick right back up again where they left off. So the temperature shoots back up again as the precipitation increases, and then usually the material that comes in the spring is ready the following spring to spread after maybe 4 or 5 turnings. So one philosophy of composting, which was advocated by Will Brinton from Massachusetts, was if you get everything right at the beginning, you set it up, you leave it, you walk away, and you just let nature take its course. That's not what this is about. This is about forcing air into the pile. Now I should say that this horse manure is not really the best use for an ASP system, because it has really ideal physical properties. It aerates easily. It will take water if when you get rain. It's not over wet when it comes in. It's not, it maintains loft for aeration, and it's very forgiving. The ASP would be better suited, I think, for kind of a denser material that you might have difficulty managing using a conventional windrow system. Things like food waste, pig manure, cattle manure, or whatever. But for this material, it's not really. It's totally unnecessary. So the idea is that you have a blower, which you can see there, that little yellow thing, which blows air into a manifold which connects to lines that have air holes in them that run under the pile. And so you're forcing air into the pile, so you're keeping it aerated, which, for some materials, keeping it aerated is a problem. As I said, with this material, it is not a problem. So the materials are triple wall, high density polyethylene. PVC doesn't really work. PVC, I forget what the issue is. It becomes brittle, or, in that kind of an environment. But HDPE is the way to go. This stuff is a Home Depot. It's $9.90 a length. And you can see it already has the holes in it. And they also make the same 10-foot lengths without the holes, which you use for the feeder into the pile. I mean, there's actually a plan for this thing. It's very basic. The plan was developed and promoted by O2 composting systems. They're out on the West Coast. And he deals with he sets up a lot of systems for equine operators. So what you do is you can see you have, the holes are not on opposite sides of the pipe, which is ideal, because what you want to do is actually lay it down so that they're at 4 o'clock and like 8 o'clock. And so first you put down a wood chip base layer. And then you put this pipe on top of that. Base layer is maybe 8 inches deep. Put this on top, and then you fill up over your manifold, over your lines, maybe another 6 to 8 inches. Although I'm thinking that when I do this next, I'm going to put it more like a foot. And I'll explain why in a minute. And then you start to put your raw material on. The way that we were putting the material on, we do have a large Volvo bucket loader. It has a 2-yard bucket, so it can kind of reach in most of the way. But what we were doing is we were putting the raw material into that dump truck, bringing the dump truck over, backing it up, and then we would push it up with the loader and then do it again and then push it up. I forget how many loads he put in there. And then after you have to kind of, flatten the top out, possibly shape the side. We also have a small skid steer that we were kind of using for that. And then you have to put a bio layer on top. So the black material that's on the top is not actually a result of the ASP composting. That actually was what we produced using our windrow system. To put that on, we used a large side delivery manure spreader. The problem was it didn't really reach, a manure spreader is not made to like throw it up into the air and on top of a pile. So what we did is we first went through 1 or 2 times, and then we were actually using the edge of what we spread as a ramp to kind of tilt the spreader so that it was at an angle so it would shoot up a little higher. The purpose of the biofilter is to address any odor issues, but it's also to act as an insulator so that all of the raw manure does experience the necessary, composting temperatures of 132 degrees. We started these piles, I think it was August 1st, and they're still hot. No, yeah, you don't turn. You don't turn. There are some tweaks to the system, like if you use these 10-foot lengths, so we just assembled these. There is a special HDPE cement, which is not like PVC cement, so we still don't know if it's actually gonna hold. But then we put a hose clamp around to kind of hold everything together firmly. So when the material is done, if you had a continuous length, what you do is you kind of pull it off as best you can to kind of reduce the load on the pipe. And then you you hook something onto the end of the pipe and then pull it out. And then you start fresh. What I'm thinking of doing is leaving the pipe in place putting more of a plenum layer of wood chips on it to distribute the load, and then just leave it. I mean, I mean, unless it's breaking down, why pull it out and start all over? So I'm thinking if we go with a thicker plenum layer of wood chips, it might help to distribute the load a little better. And then we could take a small skid steer track loader, you know, up actually onto it and kind of pull the material off and then start over.
How long do you think it's going to take? You started in August. Well, I guess you don't need it until that spring, so I suppose.
Well, I mean, there were issues. So I didn't meet with Peter Moon's total seal of approval. Let me say that. Because what these professional composters don't realize is that farms were resource limited. So you might know what you need to do, but you may not be able to do it because you don't have the time or the money to do it. The horse manure does not have the proper carbon-nitrogen ratio, possibly bulk density. He has specifications for that, or moisture content. What composters will typically do is they're not using one single feedstock. They're blending. And I'm not about to buy in. Sorry, I'm not going to buy in. I'm just going to use what I get for free and work with it. Now, probably the moisture should have been addressed. You have to address the moisture before you actually assemble the material. That's one of his guiding principles. That although I've made an effort to put, I have drip lines up on top of that pile, but the argument that he makes is that it's hard really to uniformly saturate a pile after it's already formed into a windrow. I don't know if that's true or not, so I'm willing to put it to the test, but it's pretty clear that as the material comes in, you know, there's moisture in there, but it's not enough to carry it through the full composting term. Now, if you can't get water onto a windrow, or manure in a how are you going to get it? I mean, I don't know. So that is kind of an issue. But I'm taking all of this in stride because I'm thinking I'm not going to use ASP for composting because the windrow system works fine with this material. It pretty much composts itself. To form these piles and manage them, I have to be involved, or the guy that I had construct this, he was out here with a level. It took him days to put this pile together to look like this. You could roll a marble on the top of that compost pile. It's just not really worth it. What I'm going to use it for is heating tunnels. Because you already have the manifold in place, instead of pushing air into the pile, you could pull it through the material. And then you have all that infinitude or whatever of surface, heated surface area that you're pulling the air through down into your manifold. Now it does come out humid and it comes out hot. And I actually tried that using that thing next to the table. It lasted about 2 weeks and then it just totally burned out. But I've learned a few things since then. If you want to actually pull instead of push, you need something that is much more durable. You don't want to have an inline fan motor. You want to have an external motor, and you want to have a motor that can handle about 170, 75 degrees, which is what the air gets up to when you pull it out.
So you're basically going.
I'm only okay. It's going to be a special application in that we're doing figs in high tunnels. Some of the figs, some figs are cold hardy, but some figs, the best figs, are not that cold hardy. You need to heat to about 25 degrees. And so those figs are going into a greenhouse in macro bins, and I don't want to have to heat to 25 degrees with propane. So we're going to try this. They're going to be dormant, they're going to be leafless. There is a lot of humidity. I mean, I could do some kind of heat exchanger, but the first attempt is going to be just a direct release right into the greenhouse. The greenhouse is not that, it's only like a 96 footer, like 28 by 96. We were kind of connected with the director of the New Jersey Composting Council, Hiro. I forget what his last name is. And he was a big advocate for it. And so then somebody kind of pursued it from there. And we know someone who actually did composting professionally, and they kind of consulted a little bit. During the season, I have like 3 people that can use a bucket loader. I can just say, go turn those piles. And they do it. They have nothing else to do. Maybe it rained the day before, so they go out and they turn the piles. But this kind of thing is much more, to scale this up would be much more management intensive, and that's one of the resources that we don't have. Plus, the material, you couldn't ask for, I love this stuff. You couldn't ask for a better manure, really. I mean, it's so forgiving. You can walk away and the piles cool down, and then, you know, they get more rain and then they heat back up again. I mean, you go through, you know, and I can stockpile material for like 2 years, not turn it, and then turn it, and it'll heat up over 132 degrees for more than 3 days. You couldn't ask for anything better. So this isn't real, you know, this is not really a challenging material, and it doesn't really produce, I mean, even fresh, you know, it's not really odorous, and it has kind of a natural porosity, so it doesn't really want to go anaerobic unless it's in like standing water. I think we're going to use this primarily for heating. Yeah, so let me show you what we did here. So I actually did this today. I wanted to see how far it got. And you can see that we're moist down to here, but then we do have a base layer where it's dry. So I haven't been, so it has dried out.
You put more water?
Right. I should have pre-watered the material.
So it's too dry.
Right. But you don't really get that impression when the material is received. It seems thoroughly moist. It's just, it should actually be wetter. Yeah, those are the thermometers. So this one is 122, That's like 144. I have one up top, which I think is like 170 degrees still. You know, when the material's finished, you can kind of pull it off, take some of the load off, and then the pipes are actually exposed at the other end. And then here, you would just put some kind of a clamp on it. We were going to improvise something, and then just pull them out, which is why we put it at this end of the field, because we have enough room to actually pull it out.